joining us today, and here I have with me Liz Copeland, who is a divorce mentor. And Liz is going to talk to us about the various stages of divorce, what we should be doing, and how a divorce mentor can actually help us. So welcome, Liz. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, Liz, I noticed in this particular session, we're going to be talking about rebuilding your life. I guess either planning for that during the divorce process or post-divorce. Because obviously, for many women going through a divorce, you end up at a period where you've got very low self-confidence or very low self-esteem. So how do you rebuild that and start moving on?
Well, I think the first thing is to recognise when you're ready to move on, which hopefully will be sometime during the divorce process or when you're coming to the end of it. And that the big difference is that at the beginning of divorce, you spend a lot of time looking back. You're looking back on what's gone wrong and what you could have done and what you could have said, etc., etc. During divorce, you're probably focusing very much on the here and now, a little bit into the future in order to get the financial settlement. But it can be a bit of an endurance test, and sometimes you're just struggling to think beyond the next half hour, really. So you're not thinking greatly into the future. At the point where you start thinking about what do I want to do next, what's the rest of my life going to look like, that's the time when you're moving into the future. And you need to start rebuilding your future, recreating it, getting a vision for your future.
Right. And how would somebody actually how would you help somebody through that process, if you know, as a mentor?
I usually start with values work, because most of us have values that are reasonably constant throughout our lives. We might alter the priority of them for different phases of our lives, but we don't change that much in terms of values. But even if you've done values work before, you won't necessarily know how to apply that to the person that you are now. The person that you are now is very different to the person you were when you first got married, for example. So we look at what really matters to you, what values could you not live without, and then we look at how you can build those into your life. And it could be your personal life, your personal relationships, your relationships with your children, your career, your hobbies, your spiritual life. It could be all sorts of things. It depends on what you want to do. But looking at values should be the starting block. And the second thing I would say is that a lot of people will say at the beginning of this process that they have no self-confidence. And I have women who come to me for the post-divorce coaching, and typically they will say, do you know, I used to be a self-confident person. I used to be confident and I'm not anymore. And they think it's gone forever, but it isn't. You can rebuild it. But what happens is when a relationship is crumbling, when it's falling apart, that's going to sap anybody's confidence. I don't know if you remember when you were 16 and you fell out with your first boyfriend, and you, oh, that's it, I'm never
It was the end of the world.
You know, so obviously when you've had a life partner for some time, it's going to knock your confidence quite a bit. But you can rebuild it, and we will do things like we will look at all the things you achieved in the divorce, how you did the negotiating, the life lessons you've learned from divorce, the life skills you've learned from divorce, because I think for most people, although it is a very difficult experience, divorce is an experience that can teach you a lot, and it does build into you skills that you can carry into the rest of your life.
Right. Such as, could you give an example to sort of find a positive out of a negative situation?
Yeah, okay. So one of the things I teach people is not to jump to conclusions about what your ex is doing. So if you're going to go into a negotiation meeting with your ex and you know he's going to say something that's going to press a red button for you, make you explode with anger, burst into floods of tears or something. We all do this, and we do it because we assume that we can read their minds. So we say something like, oh, he says A because he knows that makes me feel annoyed. When I get annoyed, I get upset, and when I get upset, I can't negotiate properly. Who knows if that story is true? That's the fairy story we tell ourselves, because in some ways it's quite nice being annoyed with your ex, you know. So one of the things you learn to do in divorce negotiating is when he says A, don't react with B. React a different way.
Right.
Imagine different reasons why he might be saying it. Imagine that you have no idea at all why he might be saying it. Totally forget why he's saying it. Focus instead on what you want out at the end of the conversation. So we build, and what we're doing is we're building flexibility in conversations.
Right.
So that when you're having a conversation with someone, you're not assuming that you know what they're doing or that you know the next thing that they're going to say to you. Now this comes in useful, you know, if you have colleagues at work who annoy you. They annoy you because you assume that they know why they're saying that. And you assume that they have some bad motive in annoying you. You know, it might be that they're just total idiots and they annoy everybody. Who knows?
It's not yeah, it's not you personally.
It's not you personally. Dealing with teenagers. Teenagers are a complete mystery to all and sundry. Who knows why they say what they say? But the one thing that will help in dealing with teenagers is listening. And if you've gone through building up your listening skills during divorce, you will be able to listen to other people afterwards. So there are all sorts, I mean, that's just a small set of examples. There are all sorts of skills you learn in divorce that you don't know that you've learned, but they can build into the rest of your life.
Right. And I know that I mean, going on from divorce, and once it's all final, do people continue to talk to you and see you after a divorce as well, or does your work or as a mentor, does that finish once people have got that decree absolute and the financial settlements sorted?
Not necessarily finished then. Some people come to see me when they're towards the end of their divorce, and they're specifically coming to me because they're saying, I don't know what to do next.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, when you get divorced, it is such a major life change. Everybody recognises it as such. In a way, you've got an excuse to just do something new with your life. So you have an excuse to take some time out, maybe go on holiday, think about what you want to do next. You've got this freedom, which if you let it sort of linger for, say, a couple of years, 2 years later, you can't make those choices.
No.
You can only do them at the end of divorce or very close to it. And so sometimes people come to me at the end of the divorce and they say, well, I don't know what to do next. So that is more like life coaching stroke career coaching. Again, it's going back to your values, it's going back to what outcomes do you want from life, and you've got the freedom then to give up all the things that your ex wanted, because you may have wanted different things, but you've never been able to express that.
And frequently, I mean, I know that happens. I've had conversations with many women who said when they look back, they were actually living their ex's life and not their own life, because they fit it in with, you know, what that person wanted to do, and they sacrificed what they wanted to do for the sake of the marriage and that relationship.
Yeah, and that's always going to happen, because marriage is a compromise, and you know, he will have done the same with your life. When people stay happily married, both sides will be doing that compromise. But when you're leaving a marriage that has gone on the skids, then you feel, oh, thank goodness for that. I don't have to do all the things he wanted to do, and it's such a sense of freedom. But then, you know, what do you do with the rest of your life?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that. I'm sure people going through that process or considering it will get an awful lot out of this, and hopefully people have watched all 4 videos to get the maximum benefit. So just to recap, how can people contact you, Liz? Are you sort of one of a small number of divorce mentors, or are there lots out there to choose from?
There are divorce coaches out there. They're not that prevalent, particularly in the UK. You can contact me. The best thing to do is to email me, which is liz@thedivorcementor.com.
Okay.
Have a look at the website, www.thedivorcementor.com. I think my telephone details are on the website, but it's much more reliable if you email me, because obviously if I'm in a coaching session with someone, I don't answer the phone.
No.
So you're just going to get an answer phone anyway. So do email me in the first instance. I usually start off working with people by having a preliminary chat with them, which is free of charge, to see if we want to work together and we suit each other, and then we take the coaching program from there.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for spending that time with us, Liz. And I'm sure that even if people don't come to you or don't at this stage, they would have got a lot of value out of the insights you've been able to give us today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.